There's no reason not to believe in time travel when convincing stories like these are here to baffle us. Don't believe us? Let us take you on traveling around the 10 most convincing cases of time travel throughout history, only on Top 10 Binge. If you feel amazed at any point, give this video a like, watch it with your friends, and subscribe to Top 10 Binge. Number 1. Green skin ghosts or aliens. An unaccompanied young boy and girl were found in Woolpit, England, in the 12th century. The language they spoke was not any language known to Earthians, and they had green skin. The boy passed away shortly after the two were taken in by a villager. The girl lived. She picked up speaking English, finally able to explain her origins. She explained that she and her brother were caring for their father's sheep one day when they discovered a cave. She claimed to have been from a country covered with twilight named Street Martin's Land. They entered the cave and emerged in Woolpit after a long time traveling. Number 2. Ahead of time fashion choices. A picture was taken when the South Fork Bridge in British Columbia, Canada, reopened in 1941. Something odd was found there about the pedestrians. A man was wearing sunglasses and what appeared to be a trademarked shirt underneath his sweater. Compared to the other people in the picture, he appears out of place. Number 3. Into the past. Two men were eating lunch at a community in southwest Louisiana in 1969. Then, they got into their car and drove back to their job along U.S. Route 167. They saw a car off in the distance. As they came closer, they noticed that it was going very slowly and that its license plate had the year 1940 printed. The two guys approached the car from the side and peered inside. They saw a woman dressed in full 1940s garb with a young child. Both appeared to be quite perplexed and scared. They waved to the woman, telling her to stop, and they would assist her. The two men stopped a few yards ahead of her, as she started to go to the side of the road. As they turned, the entire car disappeared. Number 4. Are you caught up in a future air raid? German journalists J. Bernard Hutton and Joachim Brandt were tasked with covering the Hamburg shipyard in 1932. The two became frightened when they arrived because bombs started dropping all around them. After taking a few photos, they quickly departed. No newspaper accepted their account, and their images did not reveal anything unusual. When Hutton read a story about an Allied air raid on Hamburg in an English newspaper 11 years later, in 1943, and saw photos of landscapes, he was horrified, as he knew the incident already. Number 5. Where am I? A man who went to Japan in 1954 was stopped when he arrived at Haneda Airport in Tokyo because his nation wasn't real. The man claimed to be from a country in Europe that is currently the microstate of Andorra. Still, he argued that his country, Tord, had formerly controlled the same region between Spain and France. His disappearance from the hotel room he was assigned to, in spite of security stationed outside his door, may be even more puzzling. Even his passport was lost to Tord. Number 6. Hallucinating. When Charlotte Ann Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain, two British teachers, were touring the Palace of Versailles in 1901, they had a rather strange experience. The two started seeing people dressed in 1700s attire. At the same time, they explored the Petit Trianon, a small chateau on the property, and buildings that hadn't been there since then. One of the women says she witnessed Marie Antoinette drawing on the grass. In 1911, they released An Adventure, a book that detailed their adventures. Number 7. Confusion. A policeman and his wife went shopping in Liverpool in 1996. He left for a CD store down the street while his wife entered a bookstore. He observed a van that appeared to be from the 1950s honk and swerved around him as he walked out of the bookstore. Stranger still, he found himself in the middle of the street while everyone else wore attire from the 1950s. He attempted to return to the bookstore out of confusion, but it wasn't there. Instead, there was a Cripps women's clothing store. So he entered the apparel store, but then it transformed into a bookstore. He was in 1996, but had no idea how he got there until he discovered that Cripps had vanished in the 1950s. Number 8. Fun stay. Len and Cynthia Gisby and Jeff and Pauline Simpson were on a trip to France in 1979. They decided to book a hotel for the night. They found one not too far down the route. The doors to the rooms had only wooden latches, no locks. It was an unusual place. Furthermore, The windows had thick shutters only and no glass. They ran into two armed French cops while eating breakfast at the hotel in the morning. The officers were dressed in dated uniforms with capes. The entire time at the hotel seemed weird, not the least, since other hotels nearby cost more than 200 francs, while there were only 19 francs. They attempted to halt and stay at the motel once more on their way back. However, it appeared to have disappeared into thin air. Also, the gendarmes' uniforms they saw date back to 1905. Number 9. Just a vision. Air Marshal Sir Robert Victor Goddard was heading toward an abandoned Scottish airfield in 1935. He descended back into view of the airfield before flying into an odd storm with yellow clouds. The abandoned airport was again in use, with mechanics tending to yellow trainer aircraft while wearing blue overalls. But the storm resumed, and Goddard went back home. The vision he had 4 years prior came true. Trainer planes were painted yellow, RAF mechanic uniforms went from brown to blue, and the airfield was reactivated with the 1937 First Firm Magister, a brand new aircraft he had never seen before. Number 10. Is the government hiding something? In the Montauk Project, Experiments in Time, Nichols claims that he was able to unearth long-forgotten recollections of the project's creation in the 1980s. He said in 1943, the gateway opened out onto the U.S. Eldridge, the target of the Philadelphia experiment. A movie, Philadelphia Experiment, was produced in 1984. The conspiracy theory suggests that the U.S. carried out several attempts to try and camouflage its battleships during the height of World War II. In October 1943, they succeeded, but there was a side effect. The Eldridge moved back 10 minutes later. Then the crew's memories of the incident were brainwashed. Nonetheless, the movie stirred up Al Bielek's buried recollections, which the media captured widely. The two guys soon came in touch and connected the dots, claiming that Bielek had used the time portal. He was pulled back through the Eldridge by the Montauk scientists. Were these stories convincing enough? Tell us in the comments. And if you are still watching, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Top 10 Binge.